Get your things and get out of my house. You have exactly 1 week. My mother didn't even look up from her tablet. She just swiped the screen, reached for another strawberry from the bowl on the counter, and muttered, "Don't be dramatic, Tom. Olivia is just having one of her little postpartum episodes. She needs to learn to handle stress." I looked at my wife. Olivia was standing by the sink, her body literally shaking, holding our 4-month-old daughter, Lily. Lily was screaming so hard, her tiny face was purple. Olivia looked like she was about to collapse. Her hair was a tangled mess. There was dried baby spit up all over her shoulder, and she was trying to stir a pot of boiling sauce with her left hand while cradling the baby with her right. And then there was my sister, Chloe. She was stretched out on our living room sofa, her bare feet propped up on the leather cushions I paid for, scrolling through her phone. "Seriously, Tom," Chloe chimed in, not even glancing at me. "Tell your wife to quiet the baby down. I have a headache." Something inside my chest went completely cold. It wasn't a sudden burst of anger. It was worse. It was an absolute, quiet realization that I had let a pair of parasites invade my home and destroy the woman I loved. "I am not joking," I said, my voice dangerously flat. 7 days. If you are not gone by next Friday morning, I will have the sheriff's deputies put your luggage on the curb. Do you understand me?" My mother finally looked up, her eyes narrowed. "You wouldn't dare. I raised you, Tom. You owe me." "I owe my wife and daughter a safe home," I replied, "and right now, you two are the biggest threat to it." I walked over, gently took Lily from Olivia's trembling arms, and turned off the stove. The moment Olivia's hands were free, she didn't rest. She immediately began wiping down the counters in a frantic, automatic motion, whispering apologies under her breath. "I'm sorry, Tom. I'm sorry. I should have had dinner ready. I just couldn't get her to stop crying," she sobbed, her voice breaking. It broke my heart. She was behaving like a servant who feared being punished, not a wife welcoming her husband home from a grueling 5-day business trip. I am a project manager for an industrial engineering firm. I handle multi-million-dollar budgets, massive crews, and chaotic schedules. I am used to dealing with tough men and high-pressure situations. But standing in my own kitchen, looking at my broken wife, I felt completely powerless. I carried Lily upstairs, rocked her to sleep, and laid her in her crib. When I came back down, the house was dead silent. Chloe and my mother had locked themselves in their respective guest rooms. Olivia was sitting on the edge of our bed, staring at the floor. "Please don't fight with them because of me," she whispered when I walked in. "It just makes it worse when you're gone." That sentence chilled me to the bone. When you're gone. I sat down beside her, taking her cold hands in mine. "What do you mean, Olivia? What happens when I'm gone?" She wouldn't look at me. She just shook her head, tears silent on her cheeks. "Nothing. It's fine. I'm just tired." I knew better than to push her right then. She was physically and emotionally spent. But I couldn't sleep. The silence in the house felt heavy, almost suffocating. Around midnight, I went down to the living room and opened the security app on my phone. Months ago, after a rash of package thefts in our neighborhood, I had installed several high-definition security cameras. One by the front door, one in the kitchen, and one in the main living room. I had honestly forgotten they were even there. I started scrolling back through the footage from the last week. At first, I thought I'd find some minor laziness. Maybe they weren't helping with the dishes, or maybe they were just being rude guests. But as the video clips loaded, my stomach began to turn. It wasn't laziness. It was systematic, deliberate cruelty. On Tuesday afternoon, Olivia was on her knees in the kitchen, scrubbing the floor because Lily had spit up. Chloe walked into the kitchen, stepped right over Olivia's hands, and opened the fridge. Olivia looked up, exhausted, and said, "Chloe, could you please just hold Lily for 10 minutes? I need to wash my hair. I haven't showered in 3 days." Chloe didn't even look at her. No way. Babies are disgusting. Plus, I just got my nails done. Then my mother walked in. Instead of helping, she looked at Olivia on the floor and laughed. "Look at you. Tom used to date fitness models, you know. If you keep letting yourself go like this, don't be surprised when his eyes start wandering." I stared at the screen of my phone, my hands shaking so hard I almost dropped it. The sheer malice in my mother's voice was unrecognizable. This was the woman who had raised me, the woman I had spent the last 10 years financially supporting because she had no savings. I kept watching. Every single day was a horror show. My mother and sister would sleep in until 11 in the morning. Olivia would have already been up 4 times with the baby, made breakfast for them, cleaned the house, and started the laundry. When they finally dragged themselves out of bed, they would complain that the coffee was cold or that Olivia hadn't bought the right brand of creamer. But the final straw came from a clip recorded just 2 days prior. Olivia was sitting on the sofa, quietly crying while trying to get Lily to latch. My mother sat in the armchair opposite her, drinking a cup of tea Olivia had made for her. You really are pathetic, Olivia, my mother said, her voice dripping with disdain. Tom works 60 hours a week to pay for this house. The least you can do is keep your mouth shut and make him feel comfortable when he's here. If you keep crying and whining, he's going to realize marrying you was the biggest mistake of his life. We are his real family. You're just a temporary distraction. I turned off the video. I couldn't breathe. The anger inside me was so intense, it felt like a physical weight on my chest. How had I let this happen? My sister Chloe had moved in 4 months ago after losing her job. I had wanted to be a good brother, so I offered her our guest room. A month later, my mother claimed her landlord was raising her rent, so I brought her in too. I thought I was being a good son. I thought having extra women in the house would be a blessing for Olivia after the baby was born. Instead, I had brought wolves into my home to tear my wife apart. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I called my lead superintendent and told him I was taking a personal day. It was the first time in 7 years I had ever called in sick or taken an unscheduled day off. I waited in the kitchen. At 10:30, my mother and Chloe finally emerged from their rooms. When they saw me sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open, they both froze. "Oh," Chloe said, quickly adjusting her silk robe. "You're still here." "I am," I said, keeping my voice perfectly calm. "We need to talk about some financial discrepancies." I turned my laptop screen toward them. I had spent the early hours of the morning reviewing my credit card statements. When Chloe moved in, I had given her a secondary card linked to my account for emergencies only. "Can either of you explain these?" I asked, pointing to the screen. Over the last 3 months, Chloe had charged over $4,000 to my card. None of it was for emergencies. There were charges for high-end beauty salons, designer clothing boutiques, expensive sushi restaurants, and subscription services. "I needed those things for job interviews," Chloe snapped, her face turning red. "You can't expect me to look like a beggar." "And the $500 spa day in downtown Dayton?" I asked. "Was that a job interview too?" My mother stepped forward, her voice rising in defense of her golden child. "Tom, don't be so cheap. Your sister is going through a hard time. You make plenty of money. Why are you hoarding it? Family is supposed to share." "Family doesn't steal from me while treating my wife like an unpaid maid," I said. My mother scoffed. "Oh, is that what this is about? Olivia has been whispering in your ear, hasn't she? She's trying to drive a wedge between you and your family. She's jealous because she knows you love us." I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I had learned in my line of work that when people are lying, the best thing you can do is let them keep talking until they trip over their own feet. "I see," I said slowly. "So you both feel that Olivia is the problem here?" "Absolutely," Chloe said, gaining confidence. "She's lazy, she's ungrateful, and she treats us like we're a burden. We've been trying to help her, but she just snaps at us." "Okay," I said, closing my laptop. "I hear you." They both looked relieved. They actually thought they had won. They thought I was the same old Tom who would just write a check to keep the peace. Later that afternoon, I left the house and drove downtown. I had an appointment with a family law attorney named Arthur Vance. I wasn't getting a divorce, but I needed to know my rights regarding eviction and protecting my assets. Arthur was a sharp older man who didn't waste time. He listened to my situation, looked at the deed to my house, which was solely in my name, purchased before my marriage, and nodded. In Ohio, since they've been living there for more than 30 days, they are technically tenants, even if they don't pay rent, Arthur explained. If you try to force them out physically, they can call the police, and you could be charged with an illegal lockout. You have to give them a formal, written notice to leave. "I already gave them a week verbally," I said. "Put it in writing, Tom," Arthur said, sliding a template across the desk. "Give them 30 days in the official document to protect yourself legally, but keep the pressure on. If they don't leave, we file for an eviction in court. It's ugly, but it's the only airtight way." I thanked him, took the paperwork, and drove home. On the way, I made a stop at a local security firm and upgraded our system, ensuring all footage was backed up to a secure cloud server that only I had the password to. Over the next 2 weeks, the atmosphere in the house was incredibly bizarre. I played the part of the quiet, submissive son. I apologized to my mother. I told her I had been stressed about work and that my reaction in the kitchen had been uncalled for. You should have seen the smug look on Chloe's face when I said that. She actually smirked at Olivia, who was standing in the doorway, looking confused and utterly defeated. "I knew you'd come around, Tom," my mother said, patting my shoulder. "A mother's love is irreplaceable. Wives come and go, but family is forever." Inside, I felt like vomiting, but I needed them to feel safe. I needed them to let their guard down completely, and they did. With the threat of eviction seemingly gone, they stopped hiding their true nature. Chloe stopped pretending to look for work altogether. She spent her days ordering food delivery on my dime, before I quietly canceled her access to the card, and leaving her trash all over the living room. One evening, I came home early and stood in the hallway. I heard Chloe talking on the phone in the kitchen. "I'm telling you, it's a joke," Chloe laughed into her receiver. "Tom is a total pushover. All Mom has to do is cry a little bit, And he immediately starts apologizing. And Olivia, oh my God, she's like our personal servant now. She actually cleaned my room yesterday because I told her the dust was triggering my allergies. It's hilarious. I stood in the shadows, clenched my fists, and took a deep breath. Just wait, I thought. Just wait. The opportunity I was waiting for arrived 2 weeks later. My cousin Rick was hosting a massive family reunion and early retirement party at his property in the countryside outside Columbus. Rick has a beautiful, sprawling estate with a massive barn, a paved pavilion, and plenty of space. Over 40 members of our extended family were attending. Uncles, aunts, cousins from all over the state. My mother and sister had been planning for this party for days. I knew exactly what they were up to. They had been dropping hints on family group chats for weeks about how difficult things had become at my house, painting themselves as suffering saints who were being mistreated by an ungrateful daughter-in-law. They wanted a public stage. They wanted to alienate Olivia from the rest of the family so she would have no support system left. When Saturday arrived, the drive to Rick's estate was silent. Olivia sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window, nervously twisting her wedding ring. "Tom, maybe we shouldn't go," she whispered as we pulled into the long, gravel driveway. "Your mother told me yesterday that everyone knows what a horrible wife I am. She said Aunt Clara and Aunt Barbara don't even want to look at me." I reached over, grabbed her hand, and looked her dead in the eyes. "Olivia, do you trust me?" She looked at me, her eyes filling with tears, and nodded slowly. "Yes." "Then hold your head up high. You have done nothing wrong. Today, this ends." We walked into the pavilion. The air was crisp. The smell of roasted pork was heavy in the air, and classic rock music was playing from the speakers. My cousin Rick greeted us with a warm hug, but I noticed a few of my older aunts looking at Olivia with cold, disapproving expressions. My mother and Chloe were already there, holding court near the buffet tables, whispering to a group of cousins. For the first hour, I did what I do best. I observed. I saw Chloe laughing, gesturing toward Olivia, who was sitting quietly in a corner, bottle-feeding Lily. I saw my mother wiping away a fake tear while talking to Aunt Barbara, the undisputed matriarch of our family. Aunt Barbara is 75 years old, sharp as a whip, and does not tolerate any kind of nonsense. If my mother managed to convince Barbara that Olivia was the villain, Olivia would be completely cast out of the family circle. Around 3 p.m, during the main dinner, Rick called for everyone's attention to make a toast. But before he could start, my mother stood up from her seat at the main table. "Before Rick speaks," my mother said, her voice trembling with theatrical emotion, "I need to say something to my family, because my heart is breaking." The entire pavilion went quiet. Over 40 people turned to look at her. "I've spent my entire life sacrificing for my children," she began, looking around the room. "And when my daughter Chloe and I fell on hard times, we thought we could rely on my son Tom. But instead, we have been subjected to nothing but hostility, greed, and cruelty in his home. We've been made to feel like dogs. And I know it's not my son's fault entirely. He is being manipulated by someone who wants to tear this family apart." She pointed a dramatic, shaking finger directly at Olivia. Olivia gasped, her face going completely white. She looked like she wanted the ground to open up and swallow her. Several cousins started whispering. Aunt Barbara narrowed her eyes, looking from my mother to Olivia. "Tom," Aunt Barbara said, her voice echoing in the quiet pavilion. "Is this true? Have you been mistreating your mother?" Chloe jumped in, sensing the kill. "It's true, Aunt Barbara. Olivia treats us like garbage. She refuses to let Mom see the baby. She makes us do all the hard labor around the house. And last week, Tom threatened to throw us out on the street with nowhere to go." A murmur of shock ran through the crowd. My Uncle Frank looked at me with a deep frown. "Tom, that's your mother. You don't do that." I stood up. I didn't look angry. I looked incredibly tired, but completely in control. "I'm glad you brought this up, Mother," I said, my voice carrying easily across the pavilion. "Because I agree. The family deserves to know the absolute truth about what has been happening in my house." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a stack of printed documents. I had printed copies of my security camera transcripts, Chloe's credit card statements, and the official 30-day eviction notices Arthur Vance had prepared for me. "Rick," I said, looking at my cousin, "can we use the projector you set up for your retirement slideshow?" My mother's face suddenly shifted. The confidence in her eyes wavered for a split second. "Tom, don't be ridiculous. We don't need to look at spreadsheets." "No, I think we do," I said. I walked over to the laptop connected to the projector. Within 10 seconds, the large white screen in the pavilion lit up. I didn't show videos of my wife crying. I wanted to protect her dignity. Instead, I pulled up the financial records first. This is the emergency credit card I gave my sister Chloe when she claimed she couldn't afford food, I announced to the room. The screen showed a massive, detailed list of charges. $4,200 in less than 90 days. $500 at a luxury spa. $300 at a designer boutique. Multiple charges for high-end dining, I said. All while my wife was wearing clothes with holes in them because she refused to spend a single dollar of our budget on herself. That's none of their business, Chloe shrieked, her voice cracking. And here, I continued, clicking to the next slide, are the transcripts of the daily security footage from our kitchen and living room. Since my mother claims she was subjected to hard labor, I read the transcripts aloud. I read the part where my mother told Olivia she was a temporary distraction and that I would realize marrying her was a mistake. I read the part where Chloe refused to hold our screaming, sick newborn for 10 minutes so my exhausted wife could take her first shower in 3 days because she just got her nails done. The pavilion was so silent you could hear the wind rustling the autumn leaves outside. My Uncle Frank's jaw had dropped. Aunt Barbara was staring at my mother with an expression of pure, unadulterated fury. "Did you say those things, Helen?" Aunt Barbara asked, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "It was out of context," my mother stammered, her face turning a sickly shade of gray. "Tom is lying. He edited those transcripts." "The raw video files are saved on a secure server," I said, looking directly at Aunt Barbara. "I will gladly send the link to anyone in this room who wants to watch them. I have over 80 hours of footage showing my mother and sister sitting on their phones while my postpartum wife collapsed from exhaustion trying to serve them." I clicked to the final slide. It was the formal eviction notice. "They have exactly 2 weeks left on this legal notice," I said. "And after today, I am changing the locks. Their things will be waiting for them in a secure storage unit that I have paid for. I am done." Chloe looked around the room, desperate for an ally. "Someone help us! He's throwing his own family on the street! Rick! Uncle Frank!" But nobody looked at her. Uncle Frank turned his back. Rick crossed his arms and looked at the floor, shaking his head in disgust. Aunt Barbara stood up from her chair. She walked past my mother, completely ignoring her, and stood in front of Olivia. She reached out, took Olivia's hands, and squeezed them. "I am so incredibly sorry, sweetheart," Aunt Barbara said, her eyes moist. "We had no idea. You are a wonderful mother, and you have a good man who knows how to protect his family." Olivia finally broke down. But they weren't tears of shame or fear anymore. They were tears of pure, overwhelming relief. She nodded, unable to speak, and buried her face in Aunt Barbara's shoulder. My mother and sister left the reunion 10 minutes later. Nobody walked them to their car. Nobody said goodbye. The lies they had spent months building had completely disintegrated under the weight of the undeniable truth. The drive home that night was the most peaceful drive of my life. Lily was asleep in the back, and Olivia was resting her head against my shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered into the darkness of the car. "You never have to thank me for protecting you, Olivia," I said. "I should have done it sooner. I was so busy trying to be a good son that I forgot how to be a good husband. It will never happen again." By the following Friday, my mother and sister were completely moved out. My mother moved into a small, subsidized senior housing apartment in Springfield. Chloe found a roommate and a low-paying administrative job, realizing that her days of living off my hard work were permanently over. I still pay for my mother's basic utilities, not because I have to, but because I believe in doing what is decent. But she no longer has access to my home, my wife, or my daughter. Yesterday was Lily's first birthday. We had a small party in our backyard. Rick came, Aunt Barbara came, and our house was filled with laughter, music, and the smell of good food. As I watched Olivia chase our laughing daughter across the grass, her face glowing with health and happiness, I realized something important. A boundary isn't a weapon used to hurt people. It's a shield used to protect what is sacred. And my family is the most sacred thing I have.